think it's been a great kickstart. It's absolutely an appropriate discussion, and I'm very glad that AEPC and BSL together could work and make this, as Mr. Swami said, it's an important discussion to be had in all boardrooms and all sustainable for the world to kind of see us. And as the video kind of clearly said, that textiles is one of the most polluting, we're not very proud of this statement, but it is one of the most polluting industries, and world's looking at India to see how a lot of the growth in the sector will come from India. How do we imbibe these ways of life to be sustainable, not only in the environment, but also socially and economically? How do we take India forward in making a choice for the buyers, the perspective of India, how that changes? We at Swatantra, we are pushing a lot of the handloom, which Mr. Swami kind of mentioned. It is slow fashion out there. We supported thousands of weavers to make sure that women empowerment, the handloom, the way it is set up, the designs, the way they're made, they're very sustainable for the environment. Of course, being e-commerce, packaging plays a big role. So these are all happening at the grassroots, but I'm very happy to have been joined by Dipali, who's a visionary. I've had the good fortune of actually working very closely with Dipali, and I know when sustainability was never a buzzword as it is today, she was always a champion for it, herself as well as her company. So we're very thankful that, Dipali, you could take out the time and speak about this very, very important topic and, kind of give inspiration to a lot of the grassroots people and all of the other manufacturers of how sustainable ability has to be taken as a way of life. So over to you, I think, and then we'll start with the questions.
So thank you, BSL and AEPC, for inviting me, and I'm absolutely honored to be here. And Tanuja and Tamanna, I think, thanks for that introduction. Mr. Nair, thank you for that respect. I appreciate that. So I'm looking forward to this discussion today, because I feel this is going to be the only way that the textile industries will need to work, and not only textile, it's going to be the global supply chains across the world. This is a reality. Without this, we are absolutely moving towards a complete upheaval of everything, all our resources, everything as well. So I'm eager to, to Tanuja, to your questions, and over to you. Thank you.
Okay, I think one of the questions which I think most people would have is, what are the key sustainability initiatives that you've taken at Wellspun? Would love to know more about it.
So first of all, I think, let me just say that, the climate change is a reality that we spoke about, and everybody's been talking about it. World Economic Forum in 2022 actually listed climate change and biodiversity among the top 10 risks the world is facing. If I look at India, our PM, has taken on a goal of net zero goal by 2070. Looking at what we are doing, we've already installed 60 gigawatt solar energy capacity, which will be used, which is 13% of the consumption that India will need. Now, when I come to Wellspun, and I must just tell you something here in my story here. 2003, we set up our plant in Anjar, which actually got devastated by an earthquake. And every organization has a journey. And for us, we started a plant in 1993 in Vapi. But 2003, when we started a plant in Anjar, which in Kutch, the run of Kutch, if you guys all know, we as an organization took a call and decided that businesses will need to be the agents of change. And that's what we started working towards. So when we got into Anjar, we started looking at the communities. But now, today, when I look, now, which is like 2023, we actually are looking at the entire ecosystem of ESG. Now, when I look at environment, I think for all of us at textile, we know that water is the biggest, we use the maximum water at Wellspun and Anjar. We use around over 30 million liters of water every day. And imagine in that arid part of the country where there's no water available, if a textile company like us starts using that much of water, what is going to be impacting that community and the ecosystem there? So we set up the first STP plant, sewage treatment plant for textiles there. We take the water from the communities and we pay the royalty to the communities. We recycle and not even use a drop of fresh water in our operations. So the farmers are getting water for irrigation and the communities are getting water for drinking. Another thing is green energy. And we must know, and everybody tells us that sustainability is going to be expensive. But believe me, to everybody here, sustainability is the only means of sustainable operations and the only way of doing business viably. If I look at green energy today, we all know last year what happened to the whole energy basket. We saw the crude, we saw the coal, and we saw how the mega upheaval happened there. Now, looking at green, and Wellspun is going to go completely green by actually earlier, we put in a goal for 2030, but by 2027, Wellspun India will be completely green. We're setting up a 30 megawatt green solar power at Anjar, a hybrid at Vapi with wind, and also with biomass. So definitely that's going to be a very big role that we're going to play. I think the social initiative, touching the lives, we are now touching 200,000 lives. Somebody talked about the farm to fashion, the entire supply chain. I think the farmer is an integral part of that supply chain. And we need to look at how we are working with them. And all here, I know we're talking about the apparel industry here, but with us in home textiles, and we know India, we are the maximum producers of cotton, highest maybe now. So how are we working with the farmers? We actually are working with over 50,000 farmers and 125,000 farm workers across Wardha, Nakatrana and Telangana. Our people are there on the fields, teaching them best farm practices, AI way of doing businesses, and seeing how we can grow cotton more sustainably. Today at Wellspun, we are using around 50% sustainable cotton. So while Tanuja, these are the initiatives that we are taking. The social part is very key to our heart. The communities that we talked about. And I think somebody talked about handloom. Mm-hmm. So where we are in Kutch, I think craft is a very key thing that, that is a very, for the livelihoods. We actually recycle the rags that get generated in a scrapyard. We upcycle it. And that is being used by these women on the pit looms to make cushions and rugs out of it. Women operate their own bank accounts and the children are going to school. So imagine that whole circularity not just doesn't work in the fabric, but it works in the ecosystem, the whole economics, the whole commercial of the whole, environment out there. And how motivating is that? So, these are few initiatives that we're taking, and education. And India, we know, by 2047, we are the youngest population across the world. And when we say that, IT is employing maximum, no, it's the textiles that employs the maximum people after agriculture. And it's the blue collar associates and the grassroots that we owe a responsibility to. So what are we doing about them? I think upskilling them, teaching them education, vocational training across in our communities. We reach out to over 50,000 people in our communities for digital education. Vocational training is a very key part of what we do. But I think this is just something that we always feel at Wellspun, that we want to be the beacon at the textile front. We want to lead by an example. So one thing for us is that we hold ourselves accountable. So our goals for 2030 are completely laid out by us. We get measured by ESG compass. and we report it back to our board every month. And also, I mean, we basically are, we have a board for ESG, we have a board of independent directors who actually look at it and review it independently as well. So this is what we are doing, Tanuja, at the moment.
That is fantastic. I think just hearing, what has been happening at Wellspun just give me goosebumps. I think there's a lot happening over there in terms of water. Socially, I visited your impressive plant, and I remember all the rags and the circularity that people are talking about today. You've employed so many women workers to actually make use of that wastage. So I think that is something which a lot of the people who've joined in can take back as initiatives that they can drive at, whether at small levels or larger levels. So very happy to hear that. Dipali, you did mention you report the BSG ratings and things to your board every month, which is the change we'd love to see in all the other companies. So how do you perform in the ESG rating and ranking as far as Wellspun is concerned?
So I think I must tell you, last year, if you know you must be familiar with the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. Mm-hmm. So last year we were at 48. Uh-huh. This year, we are at 59. And we have gone up by 11 points. Uh-huh. And we would be in the top 5 in the whole textile value chain across the world. Uh-huh. But that is not it. Now the journey from 59 to where we want to be, to over 79 and 80, where you see LVMH and the other players across globally, I think it's going to be a long one. And what is going to be important here, Tanuja, and I think I must tell you, I think all of us here have an ecosystem of MSMEs, right? Who we work with these small MSMEs. How are we going to get them in our ecosystem? How are we going to hold them accountable? Because we are talking about just the scope 1 and scope 2. It's also going to be the scope 3. So that's something we want to really look at working towards as well. So first of all, starting with green energy, I think a solar panel on their sheds, how we can look at them, hold them accountable for that could be important. We also have a platform called SEDEX, which actually has them come on board, because the minute they come on board, all the compliances are done and it becomes a complete transparent ecosystem. So when you talk about sustainability, you will also talk about traceability. You will also talk about blockchain here. And that is only going to be the way we are going to be looking at. We've already seen that, right? I mean, for us in home textiles in China, when the whole Xinjiang cotton issue happened, everybody wanted traceability. From the farms to Jining to our mills. So how would that be achievable? So it's like one step at a time, but I think that's the only way we can work with. And I think working with MSMEs, making 3 goals, just 3 goals that are part of your initiatives, educating them about what are those important things that we are doing, could help them, and evaluating them accordingly. We are also just starting that journey. In fact, we also have an ancillary park next door to our factory, which is just 1 or 2 kilometers away from our factory, where we have packaging vendors, we have spinning, we have our cardboard, all trims, all being made there. So it also reduces the carbon footprint there as well. So these are the things that we continue doing here. I mean, we got rated by Crystal, also, and and the ratings were pretty decent as well, the 63. So I think there's lots we are doing here, Tanuja, and lots more to be done. I think this is just the beginning of what we have to do.
No, absolutely. I think it's now or never, with the explosion of, the requirements of the world and how how the world is looking at India now. It is a great responsibility that we all have to work. But I do feel that there's a lot of suppliers out there and manufacturers who do think that sustainability is expensive. It just kind of adds to their cost. And you did touch upon that. So I'd be love to hear your thoughts as to how did you achieve with very limited expense to your bottom line.
So I think, Tanuja, I think when we set up a plant, we all have a plan of that, we put in our books a complete, I mean, that there's a debt, but we also have the 3 years plan of how we're going to look at our, production and everything. Now, when we talk about sustainability, it's front-ending initiative. Now, if we even taking that water that gets recycled, we're saving, we're saving the cost in water now. Now, when we talk about green energy, and if you're going to make that, I mean, you'll not be paying for the coal, and you're not going to be paying for the kind of steep prices that happen, and it makes the whole thing dynamic. Now, when you talk to these farmers for the cotton, educating them, you'll get a better quality of cotton, better productivity, better, educating that entire supply chain. When you're working with so I think, Tanuja, these are front-ending investments that we do. But if you look at your payback, as you do in your projects, you've got to treat them like that. But you will look at it, your payback will be maximum in 2 years. And that is definitely the way that we should be looking at it. I mean, your prices are going to be, that we're all looking at the inflation in a big way. Sure. Energy is going to be not sustainable. It's entirely dynamic. And we all know how we faced it last year. We saw cotton commodity, how that went through the roof. Now, even water. I mean, every ecosystem has a water, the minimum, kind of charges that you have that continue to grow every time. Water also becomes a scarcity, right? Water is also becoming scarce. How are you going to sustain your ecosystem and your whole operations if you don't make it? So truly, I always believe that sustainability is sustainable. We got to look at it very, very differently and see how we can, work that towards.
No, absolutely. I think that's very important because most people, they think it's too expensive. Let the biggies do this, and it's a whole ecosystem. And I think these are very inspiring words. If there's any advice that you like to give to the people listening in, what would that be?
So I would say time is now, and we need to start on it today, as of yesterday. But I think getting to share the best practices together, if anything is needed, we could work together. And I think you guys have started this great community here. And if we can start working towards how we can, make this happen, I think, Tanuja, this can start off. And it is going to be small steps at a time. I remember, even in the terms of the social bit, we were at 8% women, when I started, and today we are 30% women.
Wow.
But it is not just about women in diversity. You got to embrace the specially abled. You got to embrace diversity in the true sense. And that's why when you talk about the journey towards 5 trillion GDP as a country, the 50% of our population needs to work with us. We have to embrace them, right? So I think, Tanuja, one step at a time, and how, if we could learn from one another, we could see how, we could, step in and step up everywhere and hold ourselves accountable. The interesting thing, and I think Mr. Swaminathan talked about Europe, Mr. Nair spoke about it. I think it starts from Europe, where they have already started evaluating companies and the way they are looking at initiatives sustainably, right? And I think that's the way. And when the stock exchange and the street starts recognizing it, it's going to be very important for each one of us to shake ourselves up to make that a very integral part of what we do. I mean, CBAM is something that we all know is going to be, coming in right across. How are we going to look at the entire ecosystem and the global supply chain? How are we going to evaluate? The fuel is going to go green. I mean, from the point of sale of the customer to the end to the manufacturing to the ecosystem of the MSMEs. I think everybody has to be looking at how we're going to be evaluating everything, and it has to be measured. And I think all of us have to own it. And if I say it, it doesn't work with me alone. It is the whole ecosystem of mine that is working towards. All my N-1 and N-2 are evaluated on what is the sustainable methods that they're taking. And we have programs I have a program like Manthan, which is at a Blue Collar Associates. Any new initiatives, because, we feel that they are closer to the machines, they're closer to the processes and operations. They are the best people to tell you what are the kind of things and improvements that you need. And that is what we are doing. And we also have now the AI, Industry 4.0. So the printer on the spinning, you have Tendra on your processing, data log on your weaving. So we are measuring our indexes even in steam. If the steam index goes up, we correct it immediately as well. So these are the things that we're working on as well.
That is fantastic to hear, and this would be India, as I think as a culture, like Mr. Swaminathan mentioned, we were always sustainable. The question is, from a buying perspective, I think a lot of the buyers, whether it's there in Europe or US, I think we haven't been able to build that perception of India as a sustainable choice. I think we don't have to be struggling to get there. We have to do it for the most populous country. We have to do it for our own people, as well as kind of make sure that it is the world recognizes India for the sustainable fashion that we kind of give them. So if you had to give one more message to the buying team, the BSL group, Dipali, what would it be?
I think I will just tell everybody that it's not just about the product that you make, which is, sustainable. It is the whole ecosystem that is sustainable. That needs to create that product. And I feel that if we can encourage our, ecosystems like our suppliers, our MSMEs, our teams to work towards it, it's going to work. And definitely small steps at a time. But this is a reality. It is knocking at our doors, and we need to react now. Action is now, and we must take that today.
I totally agree with that. I think a small step by BSL and AEPC was to kind of kickstart this initiative with you, and hearing what all has been happening at Wellspun, and how you're leading and inspiring others to do the same has been fantastic. I thank you for your time, Dipali. We'll always be in touch to kind of learn, deeper about what's really happening, and how do we together, make sure that your perception of India changes. We also know that in COVID, we quickly learned, somebody was mentioning COVID taught us a lot of things. One of the important things was environment heals very quickly as well. So it's now or never. It's a small steps, but we know that when we take steps, the environment or the Mother Nature kind of responds to it quickly. So it's important that we take that. And thank you again. I would request Tamanna ji to take this discussion forward. Thank you, Dipali, again.